Hello, this is TelecomTV. We are in the City of London at the Great Telco Debate 2019 and I'm talking with Nigel Stephenson, Director Marketing Development, EMEA, Telco and Edge Cloud Business Unit at VMware. Nigel, can CSPs use cloud-native technologies just as they are for the next phase of network transformation, or do they need adapting, do you think, to new standards and new specifications?
So regardless, I think, of what opinions might be, I think the job of the vendors and the communities working on these technologies is to ensure that they do not need to be specialised for the industry. That's not to say there aren't unique use cases versus other industry sectors, but I think overwhelmingly the goal here, and I think the evidence as well, is that there should not need to be, and we should be avoiding trying to specialise or create specialised versions of what should essentially be a generic capability.
Nigel, NFV is taking considerably longer and is costing considerably more than was originally envisaged. How do we as an industry avoid repeating the same scenario with cloud native?
I'd actually disagree. I don't think it has necessarily taken a lot longer or cost a lot more than was envisaged, but I would agree that that is probably a subset of the industry and the players. We currently run at close to 100 deployments of NFV globally. Some of those are very significant, hundreds of VNFs, tens of country operations. So I mean, fundamentally, I don't think it necessarily has overall, or in every instance, taken longer or been more expensive. I think it's true to say that we're still trying to leverage some of the benefits. I think the benefits that we're seeing our customers report are coming from operational efficiency and to a degree, I think, scale and also time to market. What we haven't seen yet, I believe, is the revenue upside of new services and innovation. So I think that's probably the next area of focus. But there have been some hurdles along the way. There's been a few blind alleys and some approaches to deploying NFV architectures are more complex than others, and I think that's created situations where the industry has struggled in parts. But that's not typical, I think, of our customer base.
Talking to people here at the Great Telco Debate this morning, the people I was talking to, several of them were saying, we need to reach a point where NFV is at break even. So we know that the development and everything else is now, it's more or less paid for, and then going on from that, profitability begins to emerge. How far away do you think we are there? I know it's a general question and it will be different with each different company, but what do you think?
Well, again, I can only relate to the customers that we're working with, and I think that, and there's been some public statements around the fact that I think it already has reached that, whether that be operational efficiencies, whether that be vendor leverage in terms of opening up. I mean, our architecture is very much a multi-vendor approach to architecture. So by that I mean that once you have built the platform as a service provider, you can then go to the open market to onboard multi-vendor applications, multi-vendor VNFs as we are at the moment. That in itself creates competition. Hopefully over time it will create more innovation as vendors compete to be more competitive to go on to these platforms. So yeah, I think we'd be quite comfortable in saying that on the cost side of things, as I mentioned, we're seeing those benefits and I think they can be shown, but I think we still have work to do to see, or before we see the innovation side and the revenue turn to increase margins in that direction.
How do you convince the board or the board of directors or a board of directors that cloud native is the way forward for CSPs?
We've actually got a very good ebook that would do that. But that aside, I think it's relating the business value of the technology. So if you look at what we can do when we move to an environment that's based on microservices in containers managed by things like Kubernetes, and And as a vendor, we make that easy to consume, because it's not necessarily that straightforward to do that, but we can do things by putting management wraps, if you like, around it to make it easier to use and consume that technology. At that point, I think the business benefits will start to become apparent. But in essence, it's around efficiencies in terms of small footprints to run workloads. We can reduce the amount of hardware in simple terms. We can also deploy very quickly. So whether that's in a case of a service provider, that's a new service that requires a new microservice element that needs to be spun up. Whether it's an element that's failed and needs to be regenerated very quickly, which operates your reliability aspect of things. Whether it's providing facilities to a DevOps team with qualified security access and so on for them to do their development and do that in a very short time frame versus previous methods. That all of these things ultimately roll up to business value.
How do you think CSP vendor business models need to adapt to accelerate telco transformation?
Well, I can speak from a VMware perspective, and as I mentioned before, I think the role we aspire to play is to provide the path along which the service providers can travel. So from our perspective, that means making sure we can support what they're doing today and ensuring that there is a way forward, a non-disruptive way forward as it evolves to not just what we now perceive as cloud native, but whatever comes beyond there as well. So that's where we're really focusing is, there's been a lot of success in terms of our customer base, certainly in terms of deploying NFV-based services. We need to help service providers move that architecture forward, and that's where the focus of our developments are at the moment.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.